Okay, everybody can see my slide. Yeah, the 12 prophets,
Yeah.
unity and mission, love,
Yep.
frustration, and reconciliation. So Hosea 5 is a very, very short chapter. As I mentioned earlier, it is only 5 verses. And the Lord said to me, go again, love a woman who is loved by another man, and is an adulteress, even as the Lord loves the children of Israel, even though they turn to other gods and love cakes of raisins. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and a homer and a lecha of barley. And I said to her, you must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore or belong to another man. So I will also be to you. For the children of Israel shall dwell many days without a king or a prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or household gods. Afterward, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and they shall come in fear to the Lord and to his goodness in the latter days. Now, this is like I said, a very, very short chapter, but we want to go back and look at who Hosea, again, we're going to look at Hosea. Now, remember, Hosea covered a very long time period. He covered on the top of the map, we can see where Hosea is. He covered all the way from Jeroboam the second, all the way down to Hezekiah, or all the way into captivity. And then he, of course, because he had moved into Judea, he was there. So he prophesied over a very long time period. And that's something we need to think about as we look at it. And if you remember, we're going to review a few things because we've been off for 2 weeks. Um, Remember, the divine pathos is simply God's way of communicating to us and how he feels about us. And he is the one in anguish of losing us. People often say that God doesn't care, or that the God of the Old Testament was cruel. The God of the New Testament is loving. But God is loving in all ways. He wants us to be involved in his life. The prophet, remember, was not simply a messenger from God conveying a teaching that would inspire people to do justice and warn them of the consequences of failing to heed that message. The overriding importance of the prophet was not the content of their message, but the kind of religious experience they exemplified. Hence, the prophet is neither a messenger or an oracle, a seer or aesthetic, but a witness to the divine pathos, the one who bears testimony to God's concern for human beings. Being gripped by the anguish experienced by God in response to human affliction leaves a prophet overwhelmed and tormented. And we're going to really see that when we look at some of these later prophets, some of the stuff that they did. The significance of Israel's prophets lies not only in what they said, but what they were. We cannot fully understand what they're meant to say to us unless we have some degree of awareness what happened to them. The prophet is a person, not a microphone. He is endowed with a mission, with the power of the word, not his own, that accounts for his greatness, but also for the temperament, concern, character, and individuality. And sometimes those prophets played out for the better or for the worse. Um, if we remember the story of Balaam, you had a prophet that was a problem, right? And we see that over and over that they are men, they have their own issues, but they have a divine message to give to us. In order to understand the lesser prophets and Hosea specifically, I want to take a look at the original, well, the text supporting Hosea. Where is Hosea placed in the line of Judah and Israel? Well, for that we need to go to 2 Kings, and it starts in 2 Kings 14. I would like one person to read a slide, and then we're going to work our way through a section, 3 chapters of Second Kings.
In the 15th year of Amaziah the son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam the son of Joash, king of Israel, began to reign in Samaria, and he reigned 41 years. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart from all the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which he made Israel to sin. He restored the border of Israel from Lebo-hamath as far as the sea of the Arabah. The second, I lost myself. According to the word of the Lord, the God of Israel, which he spoke by his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet, who was from Gath-hepher. For the Lord saw that the affliction of Israel was very bitter, for there was none left, bond or free, and there was none to help Israel. But the Lord had not said that he would blot out the name of Israel from under heaven. So he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam the son of Joash. Now the rest of the acts of Jeroboam and all that he did, and his might, how he fought and how he restored Damascus and Hamath to Judah in Israel, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jeroboam slept with his fathers, the kings of Israel, and Zechariah his son reigned in his place.
Okay, so we hear another prophet mentioned here in this particular passage that we're going to look at a little later. Jonah, famous for a whale. We'll be looking at him a few prophets down.
In the 27th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, Azariah, the son of Amaziah, the king of Judah, began to reign. He was 16 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jechaliah of Jerusalem, and he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaziah had done. Nevertheless, the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and made offerings on the high places. And the Lord touched the king so that he was a leper to the day of his death, and he lived in a separate house. And Jotham, the king's son, was over the household, governing the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Azariah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And Azariah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and Jotham, his son, reigned in his place. And in the 38th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam, reigned over Israel and Samaria 6 months. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as his fathers had done. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel to sin. Shallum, the son of Jabesh, conspired against him, struck him down at Ibleam, and put him to death, and reigned in his place. Now the rest of the deeds of Zechariah, behold, they are written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Israel. This was a promise of the Lord that he gave to Jehu. Your sons shall sit on the throne of Israel to the 4th generation. And so it came to pass.
So we've already seen quite a few transfers of power in Judah, in Israel, and it continues. We have one more chapter, I believe. Let's take a quick look here. There we go.
Shallum the son of Jabesh began to reign in the 39th year of Uzziah, king of Judah, and he reigned 1 month in Samaria. Then Menahem the son of Gadai came up from Tirzah and came to Samaria, and he struck down Shallum the son of Jabesh in Samaria, and put him to death, and reigned in his place. Now the rest of the deeds of Shallum and the conspiracy that he made, behold, they are written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Israel. At that time Menahem sacked Tifsah and all who were in it and its territory from Tirzah on, because they did not open it to him. Therefore he sacked it, and he ripped open all the women in it who were pregnant. In the 39th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Menahem the son of Gadai began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 10 years in Samaria. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart all his days from all the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which he made Israel to sin. Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that he might help him to confirm his hold on the royal power. Menahem exacted the money from Israel, that is, from all the wealthy men, 50 shekels of silver from every man, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and did not stay there in the land. Now the rest of the deeds of Menahem and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah his son reigned in his place.
In the 50th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekahiah, the son of Menahem, began to reign over Israel and Samaria, and he reigned 2 years. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel to sin. And Pekah, the son of Remaliah, his captain, conspired against him with 50 men of the people of Gilead, and struck him down in Samaria, in the citadel of the king's house, with Argob and Ariah. He put him to death and reigned in his place. Now the rest of the deeds of Pekahiah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel. In the 52nd year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel and Samaria. And he reigned 20 years. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel to sin. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came and captured Gihon, Abel, Beth, Makkah, Genoa, Kadesh, Hazor, Gilead, and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and he carried the people captive to Assyria. Then Hosea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, and struck him down and put him to death and reigned in his place in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah. Now the rest of the acts of Pekah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel.
So there's a couple themes that keep mentioning. One, they keep mentioning the Chronicles of the Kings. And this individual was Hosea, not Hosea. But each of these kings just continues to do evil. And one more, this is a very last one because this is where it ends.
In the 2nd year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, Jotham the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. And he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that his father Uzziah had done. Nevertheless, the high places were not removed. The people still sacrificed and made offerings on the high places. He built the upper gate of the house of the Lord. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In those days the Lord began to send Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, against Judah. Jotham slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father, and Ahaz his son reigned in his place.
In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. He did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord, his God, as his father David had done, but he walked in the way of the kings of Israel. He even burned his son as an offering, according to the despicable practices of the nations, whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. And he sacrificed and made offerings on the high places, on hills, and under every green tree. Then Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to wage war on Jerusalem, and they besieged Ahaz, but could not conquer him. At that time, Rezin, the king of Syria, recovered Elath from Syria and drove the men of Judah from Elath. And the Edomites came to Elath, where they dwell to this day. So Ahaz sent his messengers to Tilgath-Pilser, king of Assyria, saying, I am your king, I am your servant and your son. Come up and rescue me from the hand of the king of Syria and from the hand of the king of Israel, who are attacking me. Ahaz also took silver and gold that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasures of the king house, and sent a present to the king of Assyria. And the king of Assyria listened to him. And the king of Assyria marched up against the city of Damascus and took it, carrying its people captive to Kir, and he killed Rezon. Then King Ahaz went to Damascus to meet Tilgath-Pilser, king of Assyria. He saw it was Damascus, and King Ahaz sent Uriah the priest, a model of the altar, and his pattern exact in all its details. And Uriah the priest built the altar in accordance with all that King Ahaz had sent from Damascus. So Uriah the priest made it before King Ahaz arrived from Damascus. And when the king came up from Damascus, the king viewed the altar. Then the king drew near to the altar and went up on it and burned his offerings and his grain offering and poured his drink offering and threw the blood of his peace offerings on the altar. And the bronze altar that was before the Lord he removed from the front of the house and from the place between his altar and the house of the Lord, and put it on the north side of his altar. And the king Ahaz commanded that Uriah the priest, saying, on the great altar burn the morning burnt offering, and on the evening grain offering, and the king's burnt offering, and his grain offering, with all the burnt offerings of all the people in the land, and their grain offering and their drink offering, and throw all the blood of the burnt offering and all the blood of the sacrifice, but the bronze altar shall be for me to inquire by. Uriah the priest did all this as King Ahaz had commanded. And King Ahaz cut off the frames of the stands and removed the basin from them, and took down from the sea from off the bronze oxen that were under them, and put it on a stone pedestal. And the covered way for the Sabbath that had been built inside the house, and the outer entrance for the king, he caused to go around the house of the Lord because of the king of Assyria. Now the rest of the acts of Ahaz that he did, and are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And Ahaz slept with his father and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Hezekiah, his son, reigned in his place. That whole section that we just read is the period in which Hosea was a prophet. All of those people that we just went through. When we think about it, it is a long period of time. Many of the prophets only had a short part. Think about Jonah. But even when we think about the Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, obviously Jeremiah was way, way late, but Isaiah and Ezekiel were in this time frame, right? And you see it stretches over a great amount of time. Now, when you're reading through the Bible, you really need to read it in context together. People don't put, they tend to stay where they're comfortable and what they're happy with, or they follow it from A to B to C to D. For example, when we read a Torah scroll, we read it from Genesis to Exodus to Leviticus to Numbers to Deuteronomy. With the exception of Deuteronomy, were they all written at separate times and consecutively, or were they done concurrently? Well, with the exception of Deuteronomy, they had to have been done concurrently, because how would the Levites know how to act if they didn't have Leviticus, which has all of the material for the temple practices? And how would you have, when you read it all, so you've got to think about it, it's all integrated together, and we need to read it as whole. And the same thing happens when we read the prophets. We have to remember the context in which they come. And there's a couple chapters, because you remember, what was the other book they kept referencing? It was the Chronicles of the Kings. And that, of course, now keep in mind, we're reading 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles. In Hebrew, those were not separate books. There was one Chronicles, there were one Kings, there was Samuel was combined with another book, and there were many of the books that were combined, but they split them out on topic and for ease of reading. But even the modern Hebrew Tanakh is broken up this way. But if you go to really old versions, they are not broken. There's only one Chronicles and one Kings. So we're going to take a few chapters of Chronicles and look at it from the side of Judah, because what we were doing, we were just reading the side of Israel. Now we're going to look at the side of Judah, which also again, and I will start, and then if we can have people work their way through for us. And all the people of Judah took Uzzah, who was 16 years old, and made him king instead of his father, Amazah. He built Elath and restored it to Judah. And after the king slept with his fathers, and Uzzah was 16 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jokolah of Jerusalem. How many women in the Bible can we remember by name who did not have an official part? Here is one of the women that is mentioned by name. And he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaz had done. And he set himself to seek God in the days of Zechariah, who instructed him in the fear of God. And as long as he sought the Lord, God made him prosper. And he went out and he made war against the Philistines and broke through the wall of Gath and the wall of Jabneth and the wall of Ashod. And he built cities in the territories of Ashod and elsewhere among the Philistines. God helped him against the Philistines and against the Arabians who lived in Gerbal, and against the Meunites, and the Amorites paid tribute to Uzzah, and his fame spread to the border of Egypt, for he became very strong. Moreover, Uzzah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate and the valley gate and the angle, and fortified them. And he built towers in the wilderness and cut out many cisterns, for he had large herds, both in the Shephelah and in the plain. And he had farmers and vine dressers in the fields, in the hills, and in the fertile lands, for he loved the soil. Moreover, Uzzah had an army of soldiers fit for war, in divisions according to the numbers in the muster, paid by Jael the secretary, and Mishael the officer, under the directions of Hananiah, one of the king's commanders. The whole number of the heads of the fathers' houses of mighty men of valor was 2,600, under the command of the army of 307,500, who could make war with mighty power to help the king against the enemy. And Uzzah prepared for all the army shields, spears, helmets, coats of mail, bows, and stones for the slinging. In Jerusalem, he made machines invented by skillful men to be put on towers and on corners to shoot arrows and great stones. And his fame spread far, for he was marvelously helped till he was strong. But now that he got strong, he had a problem.
But when he was strong, he grew proud to his destruction. For he was unfaithful to the Lord his God, and entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. But Azariah the priest went in after him with 80 priests of the Lord who were men of valor. And they withstood King Uzziah and said to him, "It is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but for the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for you have done wrong, and it will bring you no honor from the Lord God." Then Uzziah was angry. Now he had a censer in his hand to burn incense, and when he became angry with the priests, leprosy broke out on his forehead in the presence of the priests in the house of the Lord by the altar of incense. And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked at him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead. And they rushed him out quickly, and he himself hurried to go out, because the Lord had struck him. And King Uzziah was a leper to the day of his death, and being a leper lived in a separate house, for he was excluded from the house of the Lord. And Jotham his son was over the king's household, governing the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Uzziah, from first to last, Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, wrote. And Uzziah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the burial field that belonged to the kings, for they said, he is a leper. And Jotham his son reigned in his place.
So here again, we see another prophet mentioned. We see the prophet Isaiah. So we've had Jonah mentioned and Isaiah mentioned. So we can see they're all integrated together, and they were all talking, speaking at the same time and delivering the message.
Is this
Yes,
Zechariah they're talking about, not a prophet? Not the prophet? Or
it is
no, is
Zechariah the
he a
prophet.
king? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jotham was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok, and he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that his father Uzziah had done, except he did not enter the temple of the Lord. But the people still followed corrupt practices. He built the upper gate of the house of the Lord and did much building on the wall of Ophel. Moreover, he built cities in the hill country of Judah, and forts and towers on the wooded hills. He fought with the king of the Ammonites and prevailed against them. And the Ammonites gave him that year 100 talents of silver, and 10,000 cores of wheat, and 10,000 of barley. The Ammonites paid him the same amount in the second and third year. So Jotham became mighty, because he ordered his ways before the Lord his God. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham, and all his wars and his ways, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And Jotham slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David, and Ahaz his son reigned in his place.
So again, we have a couple women mentioned. Another thing of interest, he only reigned for 16 years, and he came to power at 25 years. So he didn't die a very old individual, even though God had blessed him in everything that he did and that he followed God's way. Okay, Second Chronicles 28.
Ahaz was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father David had done. But he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. He even made metal images for the Baals, and he made offerings in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burned his sons as an offering according to the abomination of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. And he sacrificed and made offerings on the high places and on the hills and under every green tree.
So here's an individual who now gives tribute rather than receiving tribute. He in a very short time, 16 years, he had turned it around 100%. Instead of worshiping God, he invited Baal into their house. Baal.
Therefore the Lord his God gave him into the hand of the king of Syria, who defeated him, and took captive a great number of his people and brought them to Damascus. He was also given into the hand of the king of Israel, who struck him with great force. For Pekah the son of Remaliah killed 120,000 from Judah in one day, all of them men of valor, because they had forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers. And Zikri, a mighty man of Ephraim, killed Maaseiah, the king's son, and Azrikam, the commander of the palace, and Elkanah, the next in authority to the king. The men of Israel took captive 200,000 of their relatives, women, sons, and daughters. They also took much spoil from them and brought the spoil to Samaria. But a prophet of the Lord was there whose name was Oded, and he went out to meet the army that came to Samaria and said to them, behold, because the Lord, the God of your fathers, was angry with Judah, he gave them into your hand. But you have killed them in a rage that has reached up to heaven. And now you intend to subjugate the people of Judah and Jerusalem, male and female, as your slaves. Have you not sins of your own against the Lord your God? Now hear me, and send back the captives from your relatives whom you have taken, for the fierce wrath of the Lord is upon you.
Certain chiefs also of the men of Ephraim, Azarah, the son of Joan, Berahiah, the son of Beshalemeth, Jezekiah, the son of Shalom, and Amasa, the son of Idalai, stood up against those who were coming from the war. and said to them, "You shall not bring the captives in here, for you propose to bring upon us guilt against the Lord in addition to our present sins and guilt. For our guilt is already great, and there is fierce wrath against Israel." So the armed men left the captives and the spoil before the princes and all the assembly. And the men who had been mentioned by name rose and took the captives, and with the spoil they clothed all who were naked among them. They clothed them and gave them sandals, and provided them with food and drink, and anointed them, and carrying all the feeble among them on donkeys, they brought them to their kinsfolk in Jericho, the city of palm trees. Then they returned to Samaria. At that time, King Ahaz sent to the king of Assyria for help. For the Edomites had once again invaded and defeated Judah and carried away the captives. And the Philistines had came and made raids on the cities in Shephelah and Negev and of Judah, and had taken Beth Shemesh, Aijalon, Gederoth, Soko with his villages, Timnah with his villages, Gizmo with his villages, and they settled there. For the Lord humbled Judah because of Ahaz, the king of Israel. For he made Judah act sinfully, and had been very unfaithful to the Lord. So Tilgath-Pilser, king of Assyria, had came against him and afflicted him instead of strengthening him. For Ahaz took a portion of the house of the Lord and the house of the king of the princes, and gave tribute to the king of Syria, but it did not help him. Okay, last chapter, 28.
In the name of his distress, he became yet more faithless to the Lord, this same King Ahaz, for he sacrificed to the gods of Damascus that had defeated him, and said, "Because the gods of the kings of Syria helped them, I will sacrifice to them, that they may help me." But they were the ruin of him and of all Israel. And Ahaz gathered together the vessels of the house of God, and cut in pieces the vessels of the house of God, and he shut up the doors of the house of the Lord, and he made himself altars in every corner of Jerusalem. In every city of Judah he made high places to make offerings to other gods, provoking to the anger of the Lord, the God of his fathers. Now the rest of his acts and all his ways from first to last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. And Ahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city in Jerusalem, for they did not bring him into the tombs of the kings of Israel. And Hezekiah, his son, reigned in his place.
So here we have the complete story from the Kings and the Chronicles, showing the Israel and Judah and what befell them. Now, Israel was much more successful in having fewer kings, less turnover, more time spent walking on the right side than on the other, but both experienced the same thing. And when we look at, I want to remind everybody of Gordon's discussion in regard to Hosea's layout. It's going to move. There we go. When we look at this is to remind you, Gordon talked about this 3 weeks ago, the general layout of the book between the first verse and the last verse. The number one is the unfaithfulness, judgment, and hope is illustrated in chapters 1 through chapters 3. The unfolding faithfulness and the unfolding judgment is illustrated in chapters 4 through chapters 9. And the unfolding faith in God's faithfulness is chapters 9 through chapters 14:8. The repetition, the arrangement of the passages are based on repetition and enlargement. And we see this theme carried out through every one of the prophets. They repeat. If we go back and we started pulling all the verses of Isaiah, we would put them up against Hosea, and we would see the repetition. So the people aren't hearing it one time. It's not, today we have the ability to go on video and go back and we can watch the same video and over and over. They didn't have that possibility, but they had prophets doing the same thing. The second, third sections of books are expanded in more detail than the first section on faithfulness, judgment, and hope in 1 through 3, unfolding, on faithfulness and unfolding judgment 4 through 9, and unfolding hope in God's faithfulness. I would also add one more thing to it. There are also a second division when you look at the book Hosea. Hosea covers the book Hosea can also be divided based on the times the message was given. As Hosea covers a very long span of history, we can clearly determine that he had an early message, Hosea 1 to 3, and a later message, Hosea 4 through 14. Because remember, he covered a 90-year period of time, a long time, maybe a 70 period. It's a very long time period. So he gave the first message, and then he continued that message. But other prophets at the same time were testifying. Isaiah was testifying. Ezekiel was testifying. Jonah was testifying, right? So all these prophets were interwoven and moving forward. Again, repetition and enlargement. When we look at the second chapter, take a wife and children of harlotry, God's covenant is from chapter 1 to 2, and Jezreel, meaning Israel's end will happen in the valley of Jezreel. Lo Ramah, no mercy, they'll be utterly removed. Lo Ami, you are not my children, and I will not be your God. But there is always a future hope. God gives us a future hope. Yet the children of Israel will be numbered as the sand in Judah, and Israel united and gathered under one head out of the land because of the great day of Jezreel. And that's how Hosea 1:10. So again, Gordon had broken it down between the three: Israel's unfaithfulness, God's judgment, and God's faithfulness. So we come to Hosea 3. And like I said, it's all of 5 verses. And the Lord said to me, go and love a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, even as the Lord loves the children of Israel, even though they turn to other gods and love cakes of raisins. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and a homer and a layoff of barley. And I said to her, you must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore or belong to another man. So I will also be to you. For the children of Israel will dwell many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or household gods. Afterward, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and they shall come to fear to the Lord and to his goodness in the latter days. Now, here's what's important to understand. The Lord said, go again and love a woman who's loved by another man and is an adulteress. Gomer didn't just have an affair, right? She was having sex for money, for things, for items. But God told him he didn't care. He said, go get his wife, even though she is committing adultery. It wasn't in the past. This was happening to him in the present. And yet he was commanded to go back to her and love her. How many people have problems when their spouse has an affair? They don't, whether it's a physical affair or emotional affair, people don't forgive. God is saying, forgive, because I'm going to forgive you. Even as the Lord loves the children of Israel, though they turn to other gods and love cakes of raisins. Why did God command Hosea to go back to his still unfaithful wife? Not only for the sake of Hosea and his wife Gomer, but also so that they would become a living lesson of the Lord's relationship to his people. They were still steeped in spiritual idolatry, yet the Lord still loved them. Remember, we went through Chronicles and through Kings, and we see it over and over that they strain away. So I bought her. Now, some commentators have said that his wife had fallen so far into the adultery trap that she'd been sold into slavery, but it doesn't say that. And when I read this, I think Hosea didn't really need to buy his wife. He didn't need to hire her as a prostitute. She was his wife. But as a display of love and commitment, He went the extra mile beyond what was expected or even reasonable. In providing this way for his own wife, Hosea showed her, I can give you what the others can. You don't need them. Let me show you how I can provide for your needs. I don't know too many husbands or wives whose husbands cheat on them will go back and say, look, I'm going to give you even more than you had before just because I love you. And I said to her, you must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore or belong to another man. So will I also be to you. He is saying that as she comes to him, he is going to continue to love her and continue to rededicate himself. The point of paying Gomer wasn't just to make her give up her trade as a prostitute. It was to bring her to a relationship with Hosea, her husband. Relationship and living together was the goal, right? She couldn't use the excuse she didn't have money to live because he gave her money. Verse 4 says, the children of Israel shall dwell many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or household gods. Without a king or prince. When Israel fell, they were taken away. They did not have a national or political state or any type of leadership. Without sacrifice or sacred pillar. They no longer had a place to offer their sacrifice. The temple was not available to them. Israel will not have a spiritual service it needs. Without ephod or teraphim. In her fallen state, Israel will not have the supernatural guidance and direction she needs. Remember, the high priest wore the ephod, and it told that he would ask God for guidance, and that was given to them. But when they were taken away, all of that was taken away. But God had a plan of redemption. Afterward, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God, and David as their king, and they shall come to fear the Lord their God in his goodness and the latter days. The children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God. In this time of political and spiritual ruin, Israel will return and seek the Lord again. This will mark their restoration. There will be no restoration until they turn back to the Lord. And David, their king. In the latter days, this shows that the prophecy will be ultimately fulfilled in the millennial kingdom where David will reign over Israel. And this is again supported by the prophets. Isaiah 55, 3-5 says, I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast, sure love for David. Behold, I have made him a witness to the peoples, a leader and a commander for the peoples. Behold, you shall call a nation that you do not know, and a nation that did not know you shall run to you, because of the Lord your God and of the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified you. And we see it in Jeremiah 30, verse 9. But they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will rise up for them. And finally, we go to Ezekiel. And I will set over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he shall feed them. And he shall feed them and be their shepherd. And I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David shall be prince among them. And I am the Lord, I have spoken. And I will make them a covenant of peace and banish wild beasts from the land, so that they may dwell securely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. I did not include Psalms 23, for the Lord is my shepherd. Right? This is very clearly a prophetic declaration by Hosea and by Ezekiel when they're saying that David will become the king. They are referencing the Messiah. And this is what the first 3 chapters of Hosea really outline in a very compact version. If you needed the Cliff Notes version, you read Hosea 1-3, and you will have the rest of Hosea 4-14. So next week, we're going to continue on with Hosea 4. That'll be Gordon's time again. So I hope that you can join each one of us as we continue our study in Hosea. Let's pray. Our dear loving Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this time tonight. I want to thank you for allowing us to come together and look at all the things that you have done for each one of us and how you continually ask and beg for us to turn back to you because you love us so much. You're willing to do whatever it takes, even buy us out of bondage. And we thank you, Lord, for this ultimate sacrifice that you've given in your Son, Yeshua. In his name, we say, Amen.